Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout with Chris. Always dropping on a Friday in New Zealand. Today we have Megan Harris. I met Megan back in 2018. She's awesome. She's a rock star. She helps people create online courses, amongst other things. But as usual, instead of me introducing her, I'll let her tell us who she is because it always comes better from the actual person's mouth. So, Megan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, like Chris said, my name is Megan Harrison, owner of Megan Harrison Consulting and creator of Online Courses Academy. And so my company specializes in online course design and development, which means helping people turn their expertise into a productized version that they're then able to sell all over the world. And they're not limited by the time and geographic barriers that might keep them constrained or playing small in a normal situation, whether serving clients one-on-one or doing group coaching, consulting, workshops, things of that nature.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's real important for right now with all the coronavirus stuff going on because we're all stuck in our own houses.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy to see things like overnight have to shift so quickly online.
Yeah. So, so you must be extremely busy with what you do, torn 10 million different directions at once sometimes.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes.
I'm a huge believer, I'm trying, the main purpose of this, podcast is to give people tools and tricks and things that other people have actually put into place around burnout. But what I want to, Megan, what would you define burnout as for yourself? Because we all have different definitions or what it looks like for us. What would you say that it looks like and, is defined for you?
Yeah, it can mean a lot of different things, but the way that I think of burnout is really that loss of passion that you normally would have had to fuel you and keep you driven and going. I guess maybe just pushing yourself too far that you've lost the thing that just popped in my head. You've lost that love and feeling song started playing in the background in my head. You've lost that love and feeling. That's my definition of burnout. I don't know how technical that is, but that's what makes most sense to me.
Hey, we're not technical here. We're using actual people's experiences and their stuff because
You've lost that love and feeling. That's my definition of burnout.
Cool, perfect. Okay, I lost that love and feeling.
You can play that in the intro or outro of this podcast episode.
Lost the love. Yeah, but it can be for something that you have so much passion for. So I'm sure that you've had times where even with what you're doing and you've been doing it for a while, that you're like, oh my God, you've lost that love and passion. So what is it, that you've learned to overcome or even prevent yourself from experiencing that loss of love for it?
Yeah, so I found that you are wearing a lot of different hats and there are a lot of different focuses that you have to pay attention to. But when you're doing work, I've noticed that there's kind of a spectrum of energy drain that something takes. And the more that you can stay in your true like zone of genius, the less energy that takes from you. And so just to give it like an example, like the thing that I love to do, and I could do it all day, every day, and it actually doesn't drain me. It fuels me with energy. Like when I'm done doing it, I feel like I'm vibrating with so much energy. And that is either coaching other people and helping like brainstorm business ideas. So as soon as I start talking to a client or a potential client or a friend or prospect or colleague or whoever, some Uber driver or random person on the street, and my mind starts going about like business strategy and ideas or how we could turn that into an online course and like new markets, I just get extremely energized. And I could do that for so long and my energy, isn't depleted. Then there's the other like range of spectrum where having to do things like billing or proposals, good God, writing a proposal, 10 minutes in and I can feel completely depleted. And then there's a middle of the road, like, I don't know, some managerial things. It's not that I hate it, but I don't love it. It kind of is just borderline. And then there's things that I actually do like design and actually like designing with design software, whether it's an online course or an ad or a website, but I couldn't do that forever. Like eventually I would be like, okay, I need a break or something. So I think the more that we can stay in our true zone, and like I said, that's a lot of different things. And there's really only one thing that I feel like I don't get energy depleted by. So it's not possible to only do that. But the more that we can stay in there, like the more reserves we have in our tank. If that was even the right analogy. More power in our battery, random stuff. I don't know, like that amount of energy that you have goes a lot farther than if I'm like doing billing work. So I think it's important to like get the things as quickly as you possibly can that are the big energy drainers off your plate. And it's not always possible. Like in the beginning, like when you're in hustle mode, you're doing everything. But as soon as you can, like that's the first thing that you want to get rid of is that thing that just completely drains you.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's, they're in that beginning stages where they've got to hustle and they're in, they have to do that thing that drains them. Say maybe sometimes it's that thing in the beginning, you have to do more of it than you're able to actually do the things that lift you up. What things outside of work would you say, have helped you, overcome or prevent yourself from getting burned out on those things?
Yeah. So the other thing I think is really important, and then I made this mistake a lot, is trying to like play on both fields at the same time. I think it's important to be like, when you're off, when you're taking a break, like you truly are like you're off and you're not trying to work simultaneously or even thinking about working. Like that's the biggest waste, because if you're out and you're supposed to be having date night, but then you're worrying about things in the back of your head, like what you never really like got to experience or got to recharge from that off time, because mentally you were still on work mode. And I think when you try to play on both fields simultaneously, like you're doing a disservice to both sides of it. Like you're not giving 100% to either one. So I think that is one big tip and mistake that I made in the past. Two, and I think everyone will say this, is just really being clear about like your why, what it is that you're doing. So I have vision boards like on the back of my computer screen that I see every day. I have it in my closet, like a full like wall of pictures that inspire me and are like the life that I'm working to create and achieve. And so every day, constantly on my phone, really as many places as I possibly can without looking like a crazy person, I have visual reminders of why it is I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Awesome. So, there was something that I was going to pick up there. Oh, well, it'll come back to me. What about, because you've got a team that works with you, don't you? Or do you work on your own?
I do have a team, more so like a contractor base that I can flex on and off depending on workload for things.
So
Do
you help them, have you given them any tools or tips on, how they can make sure that they don't burn out so they are 100% productive with you?
Yeah, so I'm a really big believer, again, in individualism. On the Strength Finders, I love that test. That was one of my top strengths. I think it was like 5th or something. But that means that you're really good at seeing what other people are great at and then putting them into those roles. So kind of like what I said, what I try to do with myself is like, what do I love to do? And then do as much of that. I like to do that with my team as well. Like sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And if something needs to get done, then they'll need to do it. But the more often than not, if it's something that they don't like to do, or one, they're not going to do as good of a job at it. Like they're not going to have as much fun doing it. And that's just doesn't really result in the highest quality and product or whatever it is they're doing. So I'd rather give that task to someone else than making someone do something that they're not good at. So that's one. Two is getting in a routine and habit. And this is always something with me, like I need to practice what I preach, but having like block time where you're only working on this one thing. I've really found that the times that you feel the most overwhelmed is when you're task switching, and you're like trying to think about one thing and then you start something else and you start something else. And before you know it, I could have like 10 different things open. So it's just like when you're working on one thing, try to just get in the habit of only working on that. And one thing that has helped is if you're time tracking, because if you are being diligent about time tracking and how you're spending your time, it's annoying to have to stop time tracking something and then go time track something different. So you are less likely to switch back and forth because you're like, oh, then I have to stop the clock on this and like start a clock on something else. I'll just finish this one thing. And then that's what you should be doing anyway, kind of.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, that scheduling, that routine, that, making sure that you're sticking to just one thing. Because yeah, like you said, when you're getting torn, I mean, if you think about it, like for listeners in that, if they're a mother or somebody who's very busy and is higher up or trying to build their way up, if you're getting ripped in 6 different directions, I think of parents having multiple kids. They're getting ripped in multiple directions by multiple kids. I'm like, just the thought of that makes my mind like explode.
Oh my God. I think parents are just superheroes, let alone like women, entrepreneurial moms. Good God, they deserve like, I don't know, they deserve like a crown and so much, because I can't even take care of me and my dog. I couldn't imagine having like 3 children running around like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I've got 2 dogs and I'm like, I have no idea. My sister-in-law has 3 kids and she's at home and I'm like on her own and I'm like, well, her husband's a cop as well. I'm just like, oh my God, how do you do it? Like they come around to our place when they're visiting and I'm like, wow, I've got 10 minutes with them. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm over it. So yeah, that same thing, stick to one thing. I remembered what I was going to ask you about. You said make sure you switch off when you say you go on a date or something. So you're not thinking about, multiple things, again, torn in different directions. How do you switch off?
So one of the easiest things is the notifications on your phone. Like those need to go. I have 0 notifications on my phone normally all throughout the day, but then definitely like your Instagram, your Facebook, Messenger, the emails, like they just need to stop, because as soon as one of those goes off, it triggers like purposely that fight or flight mode. That noise is a signal to your brain that like, uh-oh, something is wrong, or like, let me check. And so it immediately just like distracts you from the conversation or whatever was going on. So that's like one like technical thing you can do. But 2, I think it's also very much like just a mental shift that you need to make. And then just again, like telling yourself like there's no point in worrying about something that I can't actively work on at this moment. And then one thing like Tony Robbins always talks about is know your outcome. Like what is your outcome of that date night? What is that your outcome with hanging out with your kids during that 1 hour? And then once you get clear on that outcome, you have a better chance of actually getting there. Like you don't let little things wouldn't bother you, because you just know like the whole purpose of the outcome of this is just to have quality time. So if things don't go like 100% correct, like that's still fine as long as we're having the quality time. So I think that the mental part is really important. And then I also have to mention my business coach, Todd Herman, his alter ego book is just, I think it's life-changing. But just to summarize really quickly, it's the concept that we all have different roles that we play in our life. And if we try to bring that same role into every different aspect of our life, like that's not going to be effective. So me in business as an entrepreneur and a business owner is very different. I show up very differently to how I want to show up as a girlfriend, or in the future, like a mom. Like the way the characteristics and the traits that serve me really, really well in business are not the same that serve me well in a relationship. And it's fine. That's not being inauthentic. It's important to know like what roles do you want to play, or what character traits, just like what strategies do you want to deploy for that specific time and place. And then it doesn't mean that you need to be exactly the same everywhere. He explains it a lot better and a lot more concisely in the book, but so I highly suggest reading it.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I've had it myself. I've had it with a client of mine, well, a few clients in that, I've had to, they're like, I'm at work and I'm thinking about, getting into because obviously I train a lot of people to get into the police, mentally, do mental performance coaching with them mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients was struggling because she'd be at work, but she'd be thinking about, she needs to be able to do her fitness and all these different things, the fact of being a cop and all this kind of stuff while she was at work. And so she was getting distracted in that and not really just feeling burned out at work. And I was like,
Mhm.
the same thing as you said, the ultra ego. I was like, as soon as you walk through that door to work, put on your work face. The rest, the police stuff gets left outside the door. And as soon as you walk through the door, it's your work. You're there for work. That's your outcome, as Tony says.
Mhm.
That's your outcome. Then when you walk back out, you can put okay, cool. What am I getting done today for my future where I actually want to be? It's the same thing. I heard a friend of mine who's an ex-colleague of mine. He referred to it really well as being a cop, because obviously being a cop, when you're at work, you got to be switched on. You got, the adrenaline's running, the high alertness. And he was like, as soon as I put that vest on, I become a cop. As soon as that zipper goes up, as it goes up, I become a cop. As soon as it
Mhm.
unzips, I become a dad, a husband, a friend, all of that. And I was like, that's actually really good, because you're leaving that stuff at work and you're not taking it home.
Mhm. No, that is awesome, and it's one of the things exactly what he talks about in the book is the importance of having an artifact or a uniform
Mm.
um, in a certain way. And it can be something as little as like a certain like bracelet that you wear. And actually his is an example of a bracelet. Like as soon as he walks home, he has by the door a bracelet that his daughter made him.
Mm.
And he slips that on and it's like, that's his dad uniform. So
Yeah.
he knows like what characteristics how do I want to show up for my children and my wife right now, versus how he shows up in the business world. And then cops and anyone in law enforcement are a perfect example. Like that uniform that you have, like that, as soon as you put that on, like you snap into that mode. And so for your other areas of life, like think about how you can find a uniform, quote
Yeah.
unquote, for that, even if it's something as small as like some type of jewelry or a hat or
Well, it's like
something.
if you look at exercise, I know, Megan, you enjoy your exercise as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this in the past because we are good friends as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me, if I'm going for a run, it's when I put my running shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing powerlifting, it's when I put my lifting belt on. Same thing. It flicks me into that mode. And I'm sure you have the same thing with certain things. Same thing with work and that. I know you probably, I don't know, put a jacket on or, I know when I walk into my office, even when I'm not working, if I walk into my office to grab something, I have to hold myself back from switching into that
Yeah.
work person because the same thing. Um, yeah, no, I think, for the listeners that are listening, it's real important to figure that out for yourself, especially before, if you're working towards a career or you're just starting out, or, with these times, if you're actually finding yourself going, okay, I wasn't enjoying what I was doing before. I'm in quarantine. Maybe you're not having to work because your work is, Leon, there's nothing for us to do. And you now have this free time to create courses, to create whatever you want. Um, really make sure you do that, because I know even if you're having to work at home, have that same thing, set up a space. I've talked to this with my clients already, is set up a space where that's your zone, that's your area, that's your work area. So when you leave it, you can leave that behind, like Megan said.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, Megan.
Yeah,
Uh,
the last thing that I'll mention that has been like life changing for me is something I learned from Ari Mazel with Less Doing.
mhm.
And he calls it the external brain, but it's putting a system in place that allows you to, no matter how information is coming at you, you can download it and get rid of it, and so that it all goes into one place. And so the example, I use something called Airtable, which is like a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
But I have it set up to where I can I can send a text to a certain number. I can tell Alexa in my apartment, Alexa, add this to my to-do list. I can forward it to a certain email. Anytime I take a screenshot, it automatically goes all to this one database. And
Oh,
then you know that you just set up a routine to then review it at a certain time. It's important that you do review it daily and you like stick to that promise, because otherwise it's not effective, because your brain won't allow you to let go of it. So it's like, as soon as you add it to that place, then your brain and your mind can be like, okay, it's in a safe place. I can let go of it
mhm.
now, instead of continuing to think about it. Because I've noticed if you don't have that system in place, it just goes, you don't stop thinking about it. It's like a song that plays on repeat in the back of your head that may be on like silent mode, but it's still draining energy. And the reason why I think that's true is because all of a sudden you'll be in the middle of something and that thing that you forgot just will pop back in your mind again. Because I feel like the way I visualize it, it's just running on repeat in the back of your head, draining energy, waiting for its one chance to like come jump back into your conscious mind. But if you can let it go, then you're reserving that energy and that battery power to actually work on things that are productive versus burning you out.
And keep that focus on, like you said, that block time. Make sure you're focused on that specific thing for that time instead of the 10 million different things, especially as entrepreneurs who are like, so many different ideas pop up into our heads and it's like, oh, I got to remember that. And for me, it's the remembering, and it'll be there for a while and then it falls. I'll force myself to focus on something and it's like, and then I'll go back to, okay, what was that? And normally it's an idea for content of something because
the content is huge. Yeah.
I'll say for me, content is not my strong suit. It's not one of the things that I actually enjoy doing. And so they'll pop up into my head and I'll be like, oh yeah, I need to remember that. And then I won't right then and there put it into my phone or, into my notes and that. And then a couple hours later, I'll be like, no, what was that thing? And then that actually frustrates me because then I'm like, what was that? What was it? And then I start to get focused on, that starts to draw me down, is because I'm like, what was that thing that I wanted it? Because it was a really good idea.
Yeah. Or you'll start, the other mistake is like to look it up right then or something. And then you just start going down that rabbit hole versus doing what you were doing. So I highly suggest Ari Meisel, External Brain. And he just teaches like a process that no matter how information's coming at you, which is a million different ways, like through Slack, through text messages, through email, through phone calls, you can push it all back out in all of these different ways and it all go into one place. It's really cool.
Well, that's real cool. So Megan, obviously, you talked a little bit about knowing your why already, but what is it that actually drives you, through the easy and hard times with what you're doing? And in other words, in a short question, what would you say your why is for what you do that keeps you driving?
Yeah, so the whole reason that I started my business to begin with is I really wanted to be the best mom and like wife as I possibly could be. And I wanted to be able to have the freedom and flexibility to just like be fully present in the things that mattered most to me. And so when I was in corporate, I love what I did. I was in hospital administration, but I'm a big believer in forward thinking and jumping forward 5 years ahead of time and looking at that life that you want to create and then backtracking. Okay, well, what are the steps that I need to take in order to get there? Or on the other side is jump forward 5 years and look at how your current path is, your current trajectory, and see what your life would look like if you didn't change anything. Mm-hmm. And so I did love what I did in working in the hospital, but I knew that my type of personality, I'm very like competitive, like high achiever. I would want to continue to climb up that corporate ladder. And I already was working like 10 hours. Well, yeah, probably about 10 hours a day. And then it was almost an hour long to work each day. And then I just knew that I would be angry, like if I had to drop off my kids, my future children that I do not have, with my future husband that I do not have yet. But then if I had to drop my kids off at daycare before the sun rose and then pick them up like after the sun went down, like that's not the life that I wanted. And so for me, it's really about, I just want to have as much financial freedom. I want to have as much resources to be able to like, again, offload all the stuff that I don't want to do. I don't like cooking. I don't plan on cooking a lot. Like when I have kids, I want to be able to afford to hire someone to cook for us because I'd rather spend that time with my family, like doing fun game night, like things that I do love instead of like burning the dinner that's not going to taste good. So I don't want to clean. I don't dislike cleaning, but again, I would rather be doing other stuff. And so I want to build like a life for myself that allows me to do that. And so that's kind of like the more like righteous selfishness side of things. My other big why is I just absolutely love seeing my clients be able to achieve that same that same thing for them, whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. But when we create courses and programs for our clients, it's like the butterfly effect, because it's not just them that have been impacted. It's then all of their clients or customers or students that have been impacted, and then all of their clients and students and customers. And you have no idea the ripple effect of what can happen when you have the courage and willingness to take your expertise and then put it out into the world and share it. So those are the two sides, more of a really personal, for a selfish reason, but then also I love that side of my big why about why I love doing what I do.
Awesome. That's real good. Yeah. It's real online. You can see it's real online with what you do. And I know from myself as well, creating my own course and doing what I do, it's the same thing. It's I want to see those people, when those people are lit up and they have an epiphany or a change in what they do, and they're just oh my God, this is so, it's that just lights me up as well. It's
it's so rewarding. It's when you get those emails you changed my life, it almost is what do you
you're what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. It was all you. And then you actually remove yourself. You go, actually, yeah. And it's so good because, yeah, like you said, the ripple effect. I know I've had clients of mine that say their friends are oh my God, who are you? And then their friends are asking, what are you doing? Because I want some of it. And I'm that's just, yeah, it does. It fills your heart up. And it's actually an amazing why. Megan, if you had somebody, say somebody, or even, some of the listeners, they're unsure of their why. They're unsure of, or their purpose. What advice would you give them for helping them figure that out?
I think it's something you just get more clear on, and it, as time goes, sometimes I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to figure out, have this perfect answer about our why in the very beginning. I always said, my business, it was one foot in front of the other. There was no grand plan. It was just what it has morphed into is amazing. And I couldn't have constructed it myself. I could never have imagined or planned out what it has become back before. It just was something that just came to life, had a life of its own. The other thing is, I think way too often people they feel bad or they feel guilty about having a why, or they feel like it's selfish. The things that I just said, a lot of people wouldn't want to say that because they're oh, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound like it's amazing. I don't know. Okay. Let me say it in a more clearer way. I think you have to really be honest about what it is what drives you. And there is no right or wrong thing. It's whatever desire you have, it was put in your heart for a reason. And some people it is creating world peace. Other people it is they want to have 5 Chanel bags in their closet and they just love fashion and it makes them happy. Maybe that's not going to be your end all be all why, but if that is what fuels you, and you're I want to launch this course because I want that Chanel purse. Good. Don't beat yourself up about it. Whatever you want, it's for you to decide, no one else. And so I think there's more often than not, people are they want to have this ultimate altruistic answer. But at the end of the day, I think if you're a good person, we're all altruistic. We all want to help humanity. We all want to be good people and do good in the world. So great. But now let's dive a little bit deeper and just be a little bit more honest. Even if you don't want to articulate it to other people and just want to keep it to yourself, that's fine too. And say this is why I want to do it. I want to get back at the guy from high school that said I was a nerd or something. Do whatever is actually going to light a fire in you that makes you want to go after it. And sometimes something that makes you angry is what's going to do it. So that's the other thing is positive thinking. I'm a huge believer in positivity and positive thinking, but also all emotions play a role in getting us to take actions. And so don't just stuff to the side the things that make you angry, because that's a huge driver as well.
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, I remember, like you said, around the financial, one of your whys is that financial freedom as such.
Mhm.
And, it's a huge driver for most people out there. I think you also have to look at what industry you're wanting to go into. Like for a cop, you're never going to have that financial freedom as such, unless you want to do a side hustle as well. But it's being, like you said, being honest with why it is that you want to do stuff, and your
Mhm.
why will shift and morph and change as you experience and as you go through life and things happen and that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think it's important to be clear. So, and people just have different goals and values, and so if you are going into a field where you don't think that you will reach that financial freedom, like that's totally fine, or like that level, but just be really clear and then go into it intentionally
yeah,
versus having conflicting values where you didn't mm, do something with intention. It was something that just kind of happened.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got to do stuff with intention. It's kind of like Tony's, outcome thing. What is the
Mhm.
outcome that you want from here, and actually then go, okay, cool, this is what so you don't have this false sense of reality as such. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I love your be honest with yourself, and don't judge yourself on what your why is. It's yours. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing with society at the moment, why possibly there's so many young people that are becoming so unhappy, is because they believe they have to be this certain way for everybody else, instead of just being, this is who I am, and
Hmm.
I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to love it, and it's going to power me, and it will power you even more strongly than somebody that is trying to be false. And
Yeah, and it's not always gonna. I don't think it's a static thing like that just stays the same. So this I probably relates more to business, but not really. I could relate to anything in life. I just kind of always think about things in a business mindset. But I think of like when you're first starting out a business, almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when you're first starting, you're in that hustle like survival mode, where you just care about your basic um like shelter, food in a business sense. And then the more that you progress, eventually you wouldn't get to that fifth like self-actualization stage. And I had the like privilege opportunity to be surrounded with a group of people like this for 2 days when I went to Sarah Blankley and Jesse Isler, her husband's 2-day mastermind. And at their headquarters, and the people that they had invited were like their inner circle. And Sarah and Jesse both have their own $1 billion business, billion with a B. And so their inner circle type of people, they are all definitely at that self-actualization level. And the conversations that everyone was having, it wasn't about, nothing was sales pitching, nothing was about money, nothing was about anything really business. It was like, who was contributing the most? Like
mm,
what talking about like what new charities they were starting, or how excited they were that they've built like 5 schools over the last like couple of months. And it was just such an amazing experience to be around like such a group of just such smart people, and just giving back so much. Or a conversation was never ever discussed about money or sales or anything like that, where that's kind of like that middle level now of those hierarchy of needs. But in the beginning, you can't jump to that self-actualization stage. You're not there yet. So maybe your why right now is like, dude, I just want to like be able to sustain my life, or like get out of debt or something like that. But then you're going to continue to progress. So
yeah,
don't
yeah,
ever
no,
judge
it
for where
is.
you are in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And if you realize that, you won't get burned out as easy either, because you're not sitting
Mm-hmm.
there going, I want to be at that top level. I need to be at that top level. And it's like, well, you got to work your way through, and you have to actually hustle and be like, sweet, I want that income. It's like me right now. My wife's gone from 6 figures being the bread earner to earning nothing. Oh,
Yeah.
so I'm like, sweet, it's hustle time. I went out, I found a job doing security. I told myself years ago, because I did security before the police, I told myself years ago, I'm never going back to security. That shit is done. Like, that's in a box and it's away. It's hustle time. You suck it up and you go back, and I'm going back for a different why. I was like, okay, why am I going back? I need to make income, and as well as I want to go talk to people. I'm going to talk to people on the front lines and actually get to know them, and maybe even get them on here on an episode of this, so that we can really get into that. So it's focusing and shifting that focus on that why. But I love the other thing that you had said is about anger, and using that emotion sometimes. Like, my why is, I don't want anybody else to experience the pain that I did when I ended up leaving the police. They're going through burnout,
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, depression. That's why I do it. There's some anger in there, as well as there's passion to help people. And so
Mhm.
that anger does drive you, because when you start to get things start to get rough and things start to get, your clients aren't coming in or leads aren't, different things are happening in your life. It's that this is why I'm fucking here, because I don't want anybody else. You get that that kick,
Yeah.
that fire up the ass as such. And yeah, no, so that's and that will help you burn out less because you have a passion.
Mhm.
I don't know what your thoughts on that,
100%.
Megan.
What'd you say?
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's 100% true. I mean, and more often than not, like the anger or those type of emotions are actually stronger fuel. So then sometimes it's easier to get yourself to do something when there is more of that like red fire behind it, versus I guess that would be more of a push type of motivation than a pull motivation. And I think they're both important.
Yeah, I mean, and I was gonna say on that while you're saying that, I was like, make sure viewers know that you don't want to live in that anger side of stuff, because
Yeah,
that
no.
is a pushing motivation, and you won't sustain it as long.
Right.
You've got to have that pull. If you're being pulled towards something, you'll do it forever. Like you said, your things are coaching people, and that that's
Hmm.
a pull. It's not so much a push, but when you're having to do billing, it's a push.
Yeah, oh my God. Taxes. I just want to bang my head against the table.
I can relate to that. So Megan, so tell me, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to listeners when it comes to, your industry of creating a course to, give back to people? What would be your number one piece of advice?
Hmm. And number one piece of advice, I mean, I think it would be when it comes to creating courses, it's like you need to have your plan in place before you start actually creating content. And so just spending the time to actually get your outline 100% completed before you jump into any content creation mode. That's the quickest way to get burnt out, is to try to like start creating before you have a game plan in place. And so that would be my number one tip for when it comes to that
Right.
aspect.
So create an outline, create a structure, have that real
You
structure.
need the structure before, because what ends up happening is if you don't have that structure, you don't have that clear, like like these are the modules, these are the lessons within it. You'll start creating content that you end up throwing away later because you change your mind about how the structure is, and like think about all that time and energy and waste that went into like spending time creating that content that you ended up not even using,
Yeah.
because you didn't have that. The outline is like the foundation of everything when it comes to creating your courses and programs, and you can't skip it. Otherwise it would just be like lighting a match on a pile of money, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. All right, so Megan, if somebody's looking for your services, say they want to, say somebody who's listening is like, oh, I want to pick Megan's brain. I want to look at starting my own course, my own online course. How do they find you? How do they get your services?
The easiest is my website at Megan K. Harrison, and then my social media, which is typically the same: Instagram, Facebook, Megan K. Harrison.
Awesome. All right, cool. Now, I like to ask this last question before we wrap up. What is one thing you would tell viewers to help prevent or counter burnout?
Number one thing outside of what we talked about, I think I would just reiterate the off and on. It's like when you're on, you're on; when you're off, and don't try to play on both fields simultaneously, because I think it's just a huge waste of energy that is it's so valuable.
Awesome. Cool, Megan. Well, thanks, Megan. I know you're, as we've already said, you're a very busy woman, and I really appreciate you, being on this episode. I know I got stuff out of this, and I know viewers and listeners will as well. So again, remember everybody, 6 a.m. Friday, New Zealand time, new episodes. We interview anybody and everybody that wants to be interviewed and tell us what they've done to overcome or go through burnout, whether they be some a successful person like Megan here, or even a successful person who is working out, collecting rubbish, or paramedic or firefighter or anybody. So again, thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe and give us a comment. Let us know what you like and give us a review.